Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mrs. Meltzer.
Thank you. Mrs. West?
Here.
Mr. Keys?
Here.
Mr. Pearl?
Here.
Mr. Cannon?
Here.
Mr. Aragona?
Here.
Mr. Gilliam?
Here.
Mrs. Meltzer here.
Thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
There are two add-ons. Item 23, recommendation of Personal Vacancy Review Committee and Clinton Township ACO District E Phase 3 Golden Street Relief Sewer and Water Main Replacement Project.
And I understand you need to move one item on the agenda.
Yes, I need to move item, where did it go? 8 to 1, actually.
So moved.
Support.
To one?
What number is that going to be?
It's actually going to be number 1.
Okay.
It'll be number 1 and everything will move down.
Okay. A roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you, and welcome to your Township Board meeting this evening. If there's anything you wish to speak on as it comes before the board, please come to the podium and clearly give us your name and address for the record. If there's something you wish to speak on that's not part of tonight's agenda, to your left in the front of the room, we have public comment cards. Please fill one out, and we'll hear what you have to say near the end of the meeting. And with that, we'll take item number 8 as item number 1.
Thank you. Dear Honorable Board members, from the onset of the previous Board of Trustees' initial investment to the present Board of Trustees' continued support, the clerk and IT offices have orchestrated the implementation and maintenance of our enterprise content management system, Laserfish. In a coordinated effort between records management, records analytics, department heads, and staff, we have built and continue to build an impressive system that allows easier access of information for Township's employees, which leads to better service for our residents. The clerk's office and each department work together to determine naming conventions, indexing, and timelines to place documents and set retention schedules into Laserfish. Our records analyst utilizes her skills in creating business processes and forms that connect departments, providing accountability and transparent functionality. Employees from the clerk's department and a Laserfish representative will attend the June 17, 2019 Board of Trustees meeting to explain how far we've come, where we are today, and where we will be requesting to go using our enterprise content management system, Laserfish. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer, clerk.
Thank you.
And with that, Mr. Cannon, I just want for introduction for the public to know Stephanie Chong, who is the records analyst, will begin with her presentation discussing where we are at this time. And this is an update as there was a presentation, I think, given back in June, was it? Yeah, so this is an update. And then we'll also have Mr. Brian Fatka from Laserfish come in and also give a few comments and then take questions from the board.
Just a review of what basically we're using Laserfish for besides our business processes and workflows for each department. It's a enterprise content management. It's just importing any documents, like township-wide, any strategies, policies, any kind of type of communication document that we have. And that's documents, records, emails, web pages, and also trying to store these efficiently and organized with communication amongst ourselves. And this is just a kind of a summary of what we're looking at when we look at the documents, taking an inventory of it, analyzing what the document is, what actual information is important to us, what we need, and how we're going to store it, and how the patterns in the research on those documents are, and how we're going to migrate it into our repository, and also just like testing it, launching it, and then checking it, which is also kind of like, I just lost the word for it.
A review, ongoing review.
Right, not ongoing
Yep.
review, but, like content management, all that. And the first sheet that you have there, it's just a review of everything we've done, like the last 2 presentations I have done, and a review of what the prior person did also, just so that we didn't rehash all that again, because I don't want to waste your time here. But since the last presentation, we've if actually the one I've been working with most right recently is the assessing department, especially since they had a part-time person working and they have their summer help where they're taking assessments of the properties and documents. They're taking pictures and uploading them to the repository. And they actually took quite a few documents and pictures that they had prior in BSNA because it was starting to slow down a little bit. So they wanted to try to import it into a repository so that they wouldn't have such a hard time dealing with BSNA, which is what they have done. And they did, within a short time, I mean, like, it's 11,500 documents since April they put in. And this was last week when I checked the documents. Building department is a review that I'm trying to put different things together. We're going to do it as one group of everything set to go and giving them options, just like I did with assessing. They had one option of importing the document, but once they work with it, they would suggest that, and that's what is kind of helpful of me going in there talking to them, because they're like, okay, well, this works, but it would really be easy if it automatically did this, and so we're just continuing building on it, which we did 3 updates with assessing, and now, I mean, I haven't heard from them all week because they're just like putting it in and it's working really well. And the same thing we're trying to do with building. I'm giving them options, so once we go in there, that the clerks have 2 or 3 different options to put it in and see what works with them the best, and then we can go back and review it, and this is the way we're going to do it. And the one tool I think that really helps us the best is the connector that we have, because it works with third-party applications, which most everything we have here is based off of BSNA, and that's where I'm building profiles. It helps them so that they don't have to go to 2 different programs, open them up themselves. I'll show you an example later where they're actually on that page in BSNA, and it can take them to our repository where we have those documents at, or automatically fill in permits, violations that have been finalized, so everything can be stored automatically. And I mean, these are just histories of what we've been doing since then. With we've added a ton of more documents, folders. And I have a couple things that have been made. They just need review. It's like, especially, I know the big thing was contract management. So we have that in here where it needs to just be finalized, where anybody can do a search on it based on when it's going to expire, the amounts, who actually put the bids in, and also, this also gives us a reminder, like, this contract's coming up in a couple months, we need to contact them, let them know, and also to put it on the agenda. And there's also, not all contracts, but there's some contracts where we need certain documentation from them, like insurance, saying that they have filled out any of the requests that we have for them. It will remind us that we haven't received this document yet, so we need to contact the person to let them know. And the one thing we've done with engineering and public safety, they've put in it is their contracts, but it's basically the ones they bring to you guys and the agenda, like, and I gave the example, like the Miller Pump Station, just they've been signed and to the engineering department, so they've been having their clerks put some of those in right now. And then basically our minutes and packets have expanded, and I think basically before Debbie Steller left, she put quite a few in for us. And that was a process with her too, because we had a certain way where it was, you had to rename the documents, so we made a easier import, which is another example I give to you later, where it's limiting the data that they're going to put in, and they have limited the Dropbox, so we have consistent, clear metadata, so that nothing's changed. Like, someone can't put minutes 2013. It's always going to be minutes. It's always, so we have something consistent and clean.
Good.
And I think last time we were here, planning department had just put out their microfilm, and that has been completed, put in. And we started, even though the police department is part of the inspections with our business management part, they also have their contracts for like condos and apartments. They ask for patrol. We put those in there now too. And this is a summary of like how many documents we have in there currently since last week. And it's quite a few documents, and I also explained on there what your child documents are and folders, so you know what really we have inside the repository at this time. And this is just an example of, like I was talking to you earlier about address search. So if they're on a BSNA page, and I put down the township, as the location. They can hit where the L is, this is address, they can hit address. It will automatically populate the search for them, for their address that they're on, and take them right to the repository where all those documents are at. And I have one just for building, so it narrows it down when they're just looking for building. And then I have one for assessing, so assessing is just looking for mostly their parcels, so that's how they have it listed. And this is an example, like I was talking about, with the clerks, anything that's finalized, right now that's where we're going to start at, with their projects and any of the permits. They can go to the permit itself, which has all the information that they already started with when they entered the permit, and they can upload it from the scanned document, which is like all the inspections that the inspector has gone out to and finalize it. They'll upload it and put it in and fill it in. So all they had to do is kind of pick what they want, where they're at, and it fills it out automatically for them, so they don't have to type so much. And one of the documents, we have a lot of importing documents. We can merge it as one where the program recognizes who is signed in and what documents they would be using themselves, like building. They would be importing blueprints, permits, and assessing. They only have the attachments they're working with right at this moment. And like clerks would have minutes, and also I think they put, yeah, just the clerks down there for you guys to recognize what it is. That's it. I didn't want to take too much of your time, so.
That was a whirlwind.
Yes. Well, Mr. Cannon, I just want to reiterate, thank you, Stephanie, for the presentation. She works really hard on those business forms and processes that make it really easy for the township to work inside Laserfish. They make it easy for them to access information, do audits and triggering, and then also the searching capabilities. One of the
yeah, a couple
department heads came to me and said that she'd been here for, I think, 11 years, and she looked for a document for that long, and once we got Laserfish into place, it was so easy for her to access and narrow it down enough so that she could find that information out. That would have taken, well, in this case, it couldn't happen because it would take so much time to go through all these files and to figure out where these documents are. This, now that we've scanned it, we've indexed that information, created a naming convention that makes it easier to access, and which makes it more transparent for not only for our township, but in terms of its workers, but also the township and the public as a whole. So
And a lot of these forms that we already have in here, the templates, we have them ready to go for the public. So once we have a public portal or a forms portal, like for applying for a license, same thing, the drop-down menus and everything, it's easy for the citizens to use, and it won't be such a challenge because they are limited to what they have to ask or what they have to fill in.
And that's a perfect segue for Brian Fackler to come into, because right now we don't have a public forum, but that might be something that the future could hold. And Brian is with Laserfish. Brian, if you could introduce yourself with your title. I forgot your title, I apologize. And then take it away.
Sure. So my name is Brian Fatka. Thank you for allowing me to come here tonight. My title, I'm a solution account executive. I work for General Code. We are the reseller that sells you Laserfish and helps train you guys. And I work with Stephanie and I work with the Kims. And we just really think about what could we do for the township? What could happen? And so a little background on me and General Code specifically, we work with over 450 municipal entities across the U.S. So we have seen what some places do with Laserfish to really kind of take it to that next level. So right now, you guys are using it very well internally. You have people with licenses internal, and that's what they can do with it. Whereas some of the other municipalities we work with have, as Stephanie referred to, a forms portal, which really opens up a lot of capabilities to your constituency. Digital citizens, I mean, that's the world we're living in now. And people want to be able to access information online, but also specifically when they were talking about the forms portal. If you guys have ever seen some of the different forms that Stephanie creates, she mentioned you can make that available instead of on a licensed use. They call it anonymous, but basically any public citizen could fill out a form. So something as simple as a FOIA request, instead of it coming in handwritten on a PDF and someone then has to type it in, The citizen does it, it comes in, no paper was ever printed, and it can automatically go through those routing procedures. Similar, we have customers who have done things like the simple garage sale. You know, there may not be a fee associated to it, but they need to get a permit, they need someone to sign off on it. Well, if it's online, they don't have to come into City Hall, they just fill it out, submit, someone approves it, and they get their certificate. We talked about the BS&A integration. That is one that we do with a lot of different communities here in Michigan, because pretty much every municipality has BS&A. And so there's a lot of things you can do there too, working with GIS-type data. For instance, the city of Lansing, they have a public portal that they literally take pictures of every headstone in the cemetery. And if someone goes onto their GIS system, narrows in on a specific plot in their cemetery, they can click it, it pulls up the image of that headstone through Laserfiche. So some really kind of unique ways that it can be used. But if you kind of take this to its extreme, what could happen? Laserfiche and the forms, once you own the capacity, there's no limit on what you do with it. So every piece of paper that's a form that ever gets filled out, you can turn into electronic forms and never again have to have written out paper, whether for internal or external. Accounts payable, HR, I mean, these, like I said, BS&A, there are a lot of things you can do with Laserfiche. One more that I think is kind of interesting, in Long Beach, California, the police department used Laserfiche. And if you use mobile, you can use Laserfiche on your phone, but when they take a picture or enter in a police incident report, it's geotagging that. So now when the police are out there and they pull someone over and they're talking to them, they can do a search radius of what's every open case within 5-block radius of where I'm standing. Do any of those match this person that I'm interviewing? So there's, again, just very, very wide range of what's capable. However, as most municipalities are really focusing on trying to be more transparent right now, you also have to be concerned with the security. Laserfiche, implemented the correct way, is Department of Defense level certified, so it can be made to be incredibly secure. And then I guess the last thing I would just say is, for me, coming back around to what I do, what General Code does, I am really working on building a much larger Laserfiche user community here. I cover multiple states, but I live here in Michigan. I just live right over in Wixom. And Kim can tell you, I'm actually over here with you guys quite often. But I'm trying to get all of our communities to really work together to learn and experience what each of them are doing with Laserfiche, so that instead of me just trying to sell it, you guys are learning from other communities and inspiring each other with Laserfiche. So we just had a user group over in Lansing, and then Kim and I are working on doing one here later this summer or early fall, trying to not only prepare you, the internal employees, but also really kind of make this the best thing we can and provide the most bang for the buck, so to speak, with your software to your constituents. And I would just like to know if you all have any questions at all that I can answer.
Okay, go to the board first. To the community,
Mr. Cannon.
Mr. Keys.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in today, and Stephanie and Kim, thank you guys for putting the presentation together. I think that, so Stephanie, remind me, when was, or maybe Kim, remind me when the change happened, when we went from the new position that Stephanie now holds, I'm forgetting the title of it.
The records analyst position?
Yeah, that was fairly
That was
recently.
in 2017.
17, and I just think the hoops and bounds that we've gone over now since that change have been dramatic. I know that personally in the trustee's office, we can say that because it was at that time when we started to put in all the minutes and agendas and things like that, and seeing the work that needed to be done in renaming files and making them accessible. And so I do want to just clarify a couple of things from the vendor standpoint of what we could expect in upgrades or even just that improved transparency for the public. Because the one thing that I hope that this reaches to a point where I, as a resident, can go onto the website and see all these packets and these minutes and these things that we have accessible right now for staff and the elected officials, but the public would have to submit a FOIA request or come on in and ask for it to be printed out. I just think of something like it showed in here, the budget ways and means packets are available in this system. But if I go to the website, that's not something I can access personally just yet. What would be the upgrade, or what would be the next step to get to that point?
So there are two what we call portals. The forms portal, which allows building the forms that Stephanie does,
Right.
and then there's a public portal. That public portal, if you want to try it, you can Google "powered by Laserfish."
Okay.
And you will see a whole bunch of different cities, townships, et cetera, that use that Laserfish public portal. The search capabilities that you guys have already experienced, you enable just certain folders in your repository to be seen by the public, but then you can build them those very powerful searches. So instead of, a lot of cities will post just the PDFs of their minutes. Well, you have to open them, read through them, find something. And if, I don't remember, when did we talk about a dog park 7 years ago, you're doing a lot of reading. Laserfish, just that simple search that you already have been able to use, you can build that into that public portal so that the constituent just types dog park and they find it.
And do we have access to that? It's now I'm clear, there's a forms portal and a public portal. Do we already have access to that public portal, or is that an upgrade in the system that we would have to make?
Both of those portals are not part of Clinton's system right now. It's a simple licensing update, yeah.
Okay, and so they would bring an added cost, is what I'm trying to.
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? Members
Just-
of the community?
Just
Mrs.
a
Meltzer?
comment, if I can. I just want to say thank you to Brian. The work he's done here, he's taken over recently from the previous rep that represented Laserfish, and I just want to commend him on the impact he's had here in the township of integrating the ideas of what other communities have done, bringing that information to us, and him knowing exactly more of the technology and how that works. I think that's a great value to us, so I want to thank him. Also, he has to go to a conference tonight, and he has to be in Kalamazoo, so that's why we moved it up on the agenda. So, but for you to come all the way here from Wixom and then have to go back to Kalamazoo, I think shows the commitment that you have to Clinton Township in terms of servicing us and making sure the board is comfortable with the product that we're spending the township's money. So I want to make sure everybody here is on board with exactly how we're spending that money. So I think you do a great representation in that. And Stephanie didn't mention it, but that work that she's done has allowed us to put 3.9 million documents into Laserfish so far. That is a huge accomplishment. We did that within the last 6 months. So when we're not in election mode, we're in records management mode, and she's busy building workflows for us, and Kim's busy indexing and looking at things, and we work as a team together. IT helps us, and then each of the departments help us as well, making sure this is a whole township collaboration. So I'm really proud of the work that we've done so far. We want to keep this going. Elections are coming up, and then the next year, I'm going to be busy, or not just me, but my staff too, busy with elections. So we're going to try to figure out how we can keep the momentum that we've been implementing these last 6 months. We don't want to stop that, so we want to keep that going. So I really appreciate these other opportunities that you presented in terms of the forms portals and the public access. That somewhere near down the future, with board approval, we may be able to purchase and offer.
Thank you.
What kind of a motion are you looking for tonight?
This is just to receive and file. This is just our electronic content management update. We did one in June. I just want to keep you guys up to date when we make some big progresses, and just so you know and you feel comfortable, you're hearing more and more what, the public hears more and more that what is Laserfish, and what is electronic content management? What does it mean to the public? And so this is just that opportunity to educate the public and the board about how we're spending their tax dollars. And if they have any comments or whatever, they can either mention them here or to our office anytime.
Move to receive and file.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item is
Thank
waiver of inspection fees.
Okay. That was it. I just lost it. To whom it may concern, for several years now, Ridgecon Construction has been giving back to the community by donating a free roof to a deserving homeowner each year. This year, that homeowner is John Dunsky, a kind man whose neighbor reached out to us for help. He has a leaky roof that has not been able to repair on its own and has buckets in his home catching the water. Our plans are to replace the damaged roof. Now we are looking for your help to cover the cost for this deserving homeowner. This letter is to request that the Charter Township of Clinton waive the permit, bond, and inspection fees for the project completing the roof at 19782 Nicky Street. Thank you for your consideration for our request. We look forward to continue to work with you on future projects. Sincerely, Matthew Thomas, LL, licensed building owner for Ridgecon Construction, Inc.
Thank you. Is the
Ellie.
petitioner here this evening? And the reason I'm asking that is I want to thank him on behalf of the board and the rest of the residents of Clinton Township. He's, every year now, put a new roof on a home that someone couldn't afford. So the floor is open for someone to make a motion to waive all fees.
So move to waive the fee, but still require the inspection.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Keys. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 2 is request approval for a temporary tent for fundraising event from August 15th through August 19th.
Dear Ms. Meltzer, the Church of Christ Care Center is a nonprofit senior living community with Section 202 apartments, assisted living, and a skilled nursing facility located on 15 Mile Road, about a quarter mile west of Harper. We are once again hosting a fundraising dinner event on Saturday, August 17th, 2019, which includes dinner and entertainment for about 350 of our donors. There will be no alcohol and no fireworks at this event. We will have dinner together, then entertainment by Devin Skillion. We wish to put up a temporary structure of a tent 60 by 140 feet for this event. The tent would be erected on Thursday, August 15th, 2019, and would be removed on Monday, August 19th, 2019. The location of this tent will be in front of our assisted living in the paved event area located at 23621 15 Mile Road. Please see the enclosed map. No easements will be hindered by the tent. We will keep our police and fire departments informed as this event date draws near, and we ask the Township Board approval for our plans and permission for the use of this tent. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Patty Janema, Public Relations Director.
We have this request every year. We've never had a problem.
So move.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Item 3, AT&T tent request.
To my may concern, AT&T Prime Wireless is requesting use of a summertime tent for customer appreciation and giveaways. Proposed location for tent is in our AT&T Prime Wireless parking lot, which is adjacent to our building structure. Tent size will be approximately 10 by 12 feet. All transactions will be done inside our AT&T store, which is only feet away from proposed customer appreciation tent. Proposed time frame is summer months, weather permitting, tent not to be used daily. Thank you. Kayla Van Flutteren, Office Manager.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here this evening? Yes, sir. Are there any comments or questions of board members? Mr. Keys?
Yeah, just a quick question to the planning director, or to Barry, I apologize, to whichever. When we put these tents up, that does not give them the freedom to put those flags up that we end up usually seeing that accompany these tents to draw in business or anything like that.
No, any kind of wind-blown devices, banners, flags, things like that are not permissible. I talked to Tony Pellett about that. This is kind of an odd request. We've never done one that didn't have dates attached to it. So that would be, usually, the way the ordinance reads, you can do up to 90 days for an approval of a temporary tent. This request doesn't have dates assigned to it. So they would be placing the tent, taking it down at the end of business, placing the tent 2 days from then, taking it down at the end of business, depending on the weather. It's an odd request compared to what we normally have done. Normally, this board has required dates associated with tent erection. This would not be a permitted item. They wouldn't have to pull a permit through the building department because the tent is under the requirement through the state of Michigan that requires a tent permit. So 120 square feet or under, there is no permit requirement, so there's really no means of inspection. It would just be no different than an outdoor display type thing that you guys have approved, similar to like the old Kmart Corral out front or Kroger Corral, but again, they have dates assigned. I don't know how you would like to proceed with this.
Is there any objections to adding some dates to this, even if it is a wide parameter to give that flexibility?
You want to ask?
Yeah, yeah.
Could you come to the podium, please?
State your name.
His question was, what some people are seeing here is this looks like an advertisement for you, to put it up and put it down to attract attention and so forth. Mr. Keys is suggesting that you might want to put some dates in, which would then make it more of a regular type request that we almost always grant.
That would be fine. We would do that. It's a customer appreciation and, you know, attracting people to, would be in our parking lot. And that's basically about it, you know, to.
Do you have the dates in mind?
We were thinking, you know, the summer primarily on weekends.
Mr. Aragona?
No, I was going to ask the dates. Do you know all summer long, only July, only August? I mean, if we can narrow it down, that helps us with our motion.
If possible, the remaining of June, July, August, and that would be it, weather permitting.
So that would fall under the 90 days.
That would make sense to me. I'll make the motion to include that. It's only through June, July, and August.
I'll support that.
And
Mr. Chairman, clarification on
Mr.
that
Dolan?
motion. He had suggested that he wanted to use the 10 on weekends only. Is your motion the intent that it be those months for the weekend dates only, Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Correct.
thank you.
Is that okay with you, sir?
Whatever, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, we'd like it longer, but if that's what Friday, Saturday, and Sunday would be perfect.
Do you foresee having it up on a Thursday or a Monday?
Probably not. This,
Okay.
you know, we want to do things right. We just don't want to put things up and not get approved. That's what it comes down to. That's why I'm here.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Cannon, just a quick question, though. But, so if you want it longer than August, I mean, we do offer the ability for you to come in and, Barry, do we not, to come back and ask for an additional 90 days if you wanted to do it, let's say, till the end of October. So you wanted to include August, September, October, you could do that. But you would have to come to the board for that permission. And, I mean, if I'm correct, Barry, is that?
You could do 90 days from this board meeting, which would, what that would take them July, August,
That would be
through
perfect.
mid-September,
Okay.
right?
I'd be willing to do that.
That's
Yeah.
fine, and then we'll have a chance to see you. You keep it up. Don't put any extra flags up.
No, we
Okay?
will not
Okay.
do that.
That'll be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
We
Thank
have
you.
a motion and a support on the floor. Roll call, please.
Was that supported by you, Mr. Aragona? Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gillihan?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
So the next step, correct me if I'm wrong, is I think it's a $50 charge. And then would we get an email confirming or a permit so that we can keep in the building?
Mr. Miller?
You know what, I could issue a permit from a zoning permit that would allow you that period of time that you could keep it in the store in case any of the inspectors come by. It is a $100 zoning permit for temporary structure. I can go that route.
That's fine.
You have already submitted your application in my office. I'll process that tomorrow morning, and we'll contact you with the amount due.
And then we'll bring a check in and.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a permit spelling out the dates.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4 is the 2019 Chippewa Valley High School Homecoming Parade.
Dear Clinton Township Board of Trustees, I am ready to ask the board's permission to conduct our annual homecoming parade on Friday, September 27th, from 4 to 5:30 p.m. The parade will be leaving between 4 and 4:30 p.m. Our parade will start at St. Paul of Tarsus Catholic Church, head north on Romeo Plank, and then head west onto Greenfield, where the parade processional will end in the back driveway of the Chippewa Valley High School. I would greatly appreciate being added to the agenda for the board's next meeting. On behalf of the students, parents, and faculty of the Chippewa Valley High School, we thank you very much for your time. Respectfully, Kristen DeLuca, Chippewa Valley High School Activities Director.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Supported by Mrs. West. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 5 is proposed rezoning from I-1 Light Industrial to I-2 General Industrial.
This commission has made review and held public hearing on the proposal to rezone the above-referenced land as located west of Groesbeck, north of Weybridge, from I-1 Light Industrial to I-2 General Industrial, excuse me, for the stated purpose of development with a truck transportation facility. We hereby make recommendation for approval of the rezoning as requested, and this action was supported not by unanimous vote, but it was majority vote. A copy of the notice of the May 23, 2019 public hearing containing legal description and general location sketch of the land in question is attached for your information and file. This matter was petitioned by Mr. Sam Shamya, 19429 Gold River Drive, Macomb, Michigan, 48044, is represented by Mr. Joe Novitsky, JSN Architecture, 38556 12 Mile Road, Berkeley, Michigan, 48072. We submit this proposal for consideration. Sincerely, Catherine Cherry, Secretary for the Clinton Township Planning Commission.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions of board members?
You want to let the,
Mr. Gilliam?
Okay, so there was a lengthy discussion about this particular issue in the Budget Ways and Means Committee, and I want to make sure that I have everything correct, and that is, I guess I would direct this through the supervisor to the planning director, and that is that these folks originally received a letter saying that this was in accordance with the actual zoning, but upon your coming to the position, you reviewed the zoning, and a trucking operation is not a permitted use within this current area, which is zoned I-1. If it were zoned I-2, it would be, right?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay, and so this went to then, it was appealed then to the planning commission, and the planning commission on a split vote voted that they would recommend it to the board, right?
That is correct.
Okay. However, I've received letters from folks in the area, folks that have to deal with diesel trucks running nonstop, residents, refrigeration trucks for the current trucking operation there. And as a result, they basically said, this is, you know, there's not enough screening that is in place. There's not enough of a buffer zone from Groesbeck. And then I also think that there's real traffic concerns for these trucks pulling out from these facilities onto Groesbeck. And I think there's a reason why things are zoned the way that they're zoned. And I think the problem that we've had in Clinton Township is a steady stream of exceptions created. And then that begs the question, why do we have zoning rules if we're going to waive them all the time? I think there's, based upon residents' concerns, I would not be in favor of this. And as a result, I would move that we deny the application.
I'll support that.
Mr. Aragona, you have the floor.
Yeah. So this item, as you guys know, I sit on the planning commission, and this item we discussed at length. And it gave us all a lot of heartburn and a lot of consternation. If you read the minutes, I believe it's in there, we actually took 2 votes on it. So the first time it actually failed on a 4-4 vote. The second time it passed on a 5-3 vote. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think the member who switched his vote wanted this gentleman to basically make it here to us and have us decide on this matter. I know Sam's sitting in the back of the room. If you want to come up and say anything, you're more than welcome to, obviously. But I've had the opportunity to meet Sam. He's a great guy. He came here, wanted to find something to do, some some good work to do, and he got a CDL license, he bought his own truck, he now has almost 100 trucks. I got to say, I have the utmost respect for Sam. The problem is, I don't believe, and I agree with Mr. Gilliam, that this is not a proper location for this business. If you look at where this is, it's on Groesbeck, just north of 16 Mile. There's homes right across the street. There's a road right next to it that leads to an apartment complex. So I don't think this is a proper place for it. I agree with our planning director that this type of business should be I-2 and not I-1. So I think we need to vote this down, in my opinion. And a big part of that is because of where it is. One of the things that I know we all want to do is improve the Groesbeck corridor. To approve a trucking company there, I think we're kind of stepping in the middle of, do we want this to be an industrial area, or do we want to improve the Groesbeck corridor? If we have more trucking companies here, I don't live across the street from a trucking company. I don't want to live across the street from a trucking company. I can go to work near one, but that's not where people want to live. So I think we're going to be, in my opinion, hurting the home prices across the street, and I think we maybe end up hurting the apartment complex that's there, right? People are going to have to drive past this trucking company with not a lot of borders to get to their home. I don't think that's fair to them. So, in short, I think it's hard to say no to a great businessman. I had the opportunity to meet him through Mr. Johnson. He's a part of Mr. Johnson's group. So, like I said, I have a lot of respect for him. I don't think this would be a proper request. Like I said, if we want to move this to an industrial area, that's a completely different conversation, but I don't think that's what we want to do.
And we're willing to
This
work
is
with
an
you.
industrial area.
Correct. Pardon?
This is an industrial
It
area.
is an
It's not an I-2, it's an
I
I-1.
understand, but Mr. Cannon?
Mr. Pearl, then
Okay.
Mrs. Meltzer.
One of the problems that came up was the letter from a planner that was here for a short time, filling in. Could have the petitioner address that? Could you come up here and, I've been involved in development for almost 40 years, and nobody guarantees anything until the board of that community, the elected board, approves the final plans. And how did it happen that you took that letter to mean that it was a go? You had no site plan?
No, I had site plan, it was,
No site plan approved by the planning commission.
okay.
You had no formal approvals from the township board. Yet, I feel bad that that letter was forwarded to you indicating a go, but that might be to put some money down on the property, but to actually purchase it, I felt really bad that you went ahead and did that. I've never seen that before. To take a interest in the property without actually closing on it would have been the best idea. Now we're left with a, horrible to make a decision with that letter standing out there. But basically, I agree with the colleagues that have spoken so far that that's spot rezoning. I've been on our planning commission for a number of years and now the zoning board, and if we spot rezone that to I-2, then we're going to have everybody else that wants to make that, like Mound Road and Van Dyke Road, and those roads are destroyed. They're having to redo Mound Road because of the high traffic usage of that and industrial semis that are overloading our roads now. And I feel horrible that you went ahead and made that investment instead of just paying something to hold on to the property until you got final approval and closed. So
I thought it was a final approval, that letter that I had, that's what I thought. And
did you have it reviewed by your attorney?
honestly, no.
Pardon?
No,
No.
no,
Yeah.
but the letter is like, read itself, it's basic, it says that what you're trying to do over there is, it's good. You go and buy it and close on it and start it. That's what I understood from it, at least.
And I'm sure the seller didn't mind selling it to you.
Sure. And again,
Mr. Dolan, did you have a question about that?
Yes, the, sir, just to identify myself, I'm the township attorney, and to follow up on the question that Mr. Pearl asked, how many conversations did you have with Mr. Casson?
Two or three, I'm not sure, honestly.
At what
The
point?
first time I show up, I told him that I'm trying to buy this property, and I explained to him what I'm trying to do, and he said, and at that time, he said, just bring me up a basic drawing and a site plan of what you're trying to do over there.
Did
and-
he, did he write the letter after the conversations, or did you have conversations?
No, I
before
show up the
well,
second
Let me
time. I'm
finish
sorry.
the question.
Yeah.
Did you have conversations before the letter and after the letter with him?
No,
You-
we had the
you got a letter.
conversation first and then the letter.
Did you talk to him further about it after the letter?
No, he wasn't, and then Mr. Rule shows up at that time.
Okay.
And what I did, I show him the drawings and I show him the site plan and all that I submitted. And then they gave me that letter. So when they gave me the letter, it took me about 3 months to close on the lot. And after I owned it and it's on my name, and then I came to the city again to submit an official and like a real site plan and all that, not like at the beginning it was like kind of basic, So, and I was surprised, but that
Okay,
that's
just so I'm
not
clear on
doable.
it, so your conversations happened first, then the letter, and you didn't have conversations with him after, correct?
No,
Sir, you...
Did you get any advice from anybody at all regarding the contents, what was in the letter?
only from my architects and realtor and, yeah, those two people maybe.
What did your realtor tell you?
All good. Do you have the letter?
I don't have it with me
Yeah.
now.
I
What did,
can-
what did your architect tell you?
Yeah, it says that's all we need. That's good then.
Well, I think Mr. Dolan, it comes back to if he had an attorney, instead of taking out an option on the property, he bought it. And if he had
I
an
understand
attorney
exactly. That's
that was
why I'm
doing the
asking.
closing, the attorney that was doing your closing should have told you that, to check further, that you needed more approvals. There's a whole process that everybody goes through, and I'm sure you're in Warren right now,
Yes.
so you must have gone through that in Warren. They're not easy to deal with in Warren.
You're kind of jumping ahead, Ken, of what my next question was. And so at the time you closed,
Sure.
did you have a legal representative at that time? A lawyer?
Yes.
Did you discuss the letter that you received with the lawyer at any time?
No, honestly, it was, the attorney that I had at that time he was just making sure that it's everything right on the
Okay,
title work and stuff,
all right, thank you.
Mrs. Meltzer?
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. I just think we have to, we're taking the recommendation from our department head, and we have a new planning director at this time, and I think basically, it isn't based on the fact that there's a trucking company. I mean, there is a trucking company there, Mr. Aragona, so I don't know. There's Pahoa that's
there are
there, so
five of them
to
within
say
a
that this
40
one wouldn't be conducive to that property, I disagree. I think it would be, but the way that this is set up, it's an I-1, and that doesn't host that type of zoning. So it results in a spot rezoning, which is problematic for us setting precedent, and that's the purpose behind the rejection. So with that said, we do have a motion and a support.
Well,
I think we just,
I'm going to weigh in a second. Mr. Gilliam?
yeah. So I guess I would just add this, okay? So we think that it's unfortunate that, you bought the property in a way that, isn't traditionally done. It's, you Usually, as Mr. Pearl said, you take out an option, then you make sure you got all your approvals in place. There was a transition within the township, and that transition seems to have worked in some respects against you. But I think what this community needs to do is, one, hold firm to the zoning, and then two, recognize that we need to do everything we can to try to find you a good spot that's within the proper zoning. And so our door's open. The doors to the township, the doors to the treasurer's office, the doors to the planning department. One, to find a use of the property that you currently own, and two, find you a spot that is conducive and that you can run that kind of operation, and it falls actually within the zoning.
Okay, I have two things. Number one, no one's called me to complain, no residents called me, and I went through the 17 pages of minutes, and I didn't see any residents who had complained. And number two, not that they haven't called you, I'm troubled by the letter. The young man made a big investment in our community based upon what he thought to be the green light for him to move ahead. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Cannon, may I?
Mrs. West?
I also know that our planning director, thank you, Thompson. I put flat line, Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Bruce is what I was going to say. Requested a few different things with the building. You know, originally the building was going to be brick in the front. There's a beautiful rendering that I have of the building now with brick all the way around, which would clear up that area and make it look very, very nice. I do have to say I will be voting against the denial, so.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, John Johnson, Gratiot Avenue Chamber of Commerce, representing my member, Mr. Shemaya. Hi, Sam, how are you? Before you run off and make your decision here, if I might take the liberty of discussing the project in a little greater detail. You all have not had an opportunity to actually take a look at the project, I don't believe.
No, we're only talking about the rezoning tonight.
No, I understand that, yeah. But, I kind of approach this from two perspectives. I, too, have an interest in the Groesbeck corridor and what's happening there. I understand the township wants to revitalize the corridor. This parcel of property that's there today has never been developed ever in the history of time, actually. And it's a big investment for the township. Mr. Shemaya will be investing about $6 million on the project. I know that there's been a transition here in terms of the thinking, in terms of what you want to accomplish with Groesbeck, but I think if you gave it a fair look, and I brought some renderings this evening of what this might look like, we're sensitive to what's happened with Bruce. He was kind of stuck in the middle of all this. We made an effort last week and actually met with Bruce and talked about the project, and we understand his position, but, you know, what is it that might make this more appealing for the township? And so, I think, you know, there's the project itself. What it'll bring to the township is Mr. Shemaya has 30 jobs currently in his offices. There'll be 20,000 square feet, 8,000 square feet of office. 30 of those employees will come over to the township. Long-term big picture, we're looking at about another 30 jobs in the office, 110 drivers. And so I think it's a great opportunity, provided it has the kind of appearance that you want to try to accomplish here. And we worked really, really hard on that. And we started with our architect with a building that maybe didn't look quite so good, but we worked real hard, and it's going to be an all-brick building. And but so there's, you know, the project itself and what it might mean to the township. Right now, the taxes on the property are $12,000 a year. When this project's completed, it'll be somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000 a year, as well as the jobs that would be created. But I know you want it to be something that's good looking, but the other thing that really disturbs me in all this is that Mr. Shemaya did receive the letter from a township representative. And at the meeting that we were at, the planning commission meeting, it was kind of almost painted a picture that, well, this was just some guy that was filling in. Well, he wasn't some guy that was just filling in. This is the guy who was the township's planning director, the county planning director, and he has a great reputation. And they tried to paint it as if, there was something else going on. This guy was an amateur or something. He wasn't an amateur at all. And Mr. Shamaya relied on this. He has spent $1 million between the investment in the property and various other costs associated with this project. And it actually paid, in my opinion, an escalated price because he wanted to be here in the township and bring a really decent project to the township. And I would ask this, I've been around here for a long time, 40 years I've been around this township. You know, I've watched what's happened on Groesbeck over the last 40 years. And it's fine to have this vision for what Groesbeck might look like in the future, and I'm all for it. But you take what you can get sometimes, and this is a great project, and it's a beautiful building, and Mr. Shamaya has been a great corporate citizen in the city of Warren. I've worked with him. I've been to his site in Warren. Whatever that is that you might expect or desire. I heard earlier some comments about, well, maybe there's not enough of a buffer zone or there's not enough of screening. I don't know how anybody here knows if that's even the case or not, that you could even articulate that position. And without having, if you've been at the Planning Commission, you might be aware of that, but short of that. And I just think the guy's been wrong. And I think this is fundamentally wrong, is what's happened to him here. He did this in good faith, and maybe he should have been more technical about the process, but he did it in good faith, meeting with the planning director that represented the township and that produced that letter for him as well. And so I think he's deserving of some fair consideration here in regard to this matter. And so I don't know if there's anything that I can show you in the way I brought some documents this evening and some renderings of what the building might look like, if that's helpful. Maybe that's in order. Maybe that's not in order to present that to the board this evening. But we did listen to Bruce. We're sensitive to his position. We'll do everything that we can to, as best we can, for the kind of business that we're in, make this as palatable as it can be and as beautiful as it can be for the community. So could I answer any questions?
Mr. Dolan, did you have any?
No.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pearl.
Yeah, I feel bad. I've been in a situation, I've developed over the years many multi-million-dollar complexes throughout 4 counties. And I tell you, I've been surprised myself doing it even the whole way with attorneys and everything. And sometimes they tell you when you've closed and you have the bank loan and you're ready to put a shovel in the ground and they won't issue a sewer permit. You go, what do you mean you won't issue a sewer permit? Well, because we're holding it up because of the county wants an interceptor put in down the street. So you have to fight that battle. I understand what you're going through. And we did everything right. Had all the approvals and everything, and yet we had a problem. And it happens. It happens in other communities also. So I understand, and I agree with Mr. Gilliam that we will work with you to try to make use of that property if you can't sell it, or find you another location that does work. How far up the road is I-2, Mr.
Other side of 16.
Thompson?
Sorry, I couldn't say, without doubt where the I-2 zoning is. I'm just not familiar enough with the township yet in the zoning. I know there is some I-2 zoning further south on the west side of Groesbeck, and I know there's some up near Hall Road. But I couldn't sit here and tell you precisely where the I-2 zoning is.
Yeah, I have not heard from residents, but I know there are residents right there living across the street and next to it. And the problem, we're at a crossroads. We're hearing from developers that are having trouble bringing in retail and shopping to 16 in Groesbeck because people think it's industrial. If we agree to a spot rezoning here at this level, this will open up the whole street to look like Mount Avenue or Van Dyke. You ever been driving on those streets? Yeah. It's all it is semis, We're not going to be able to stop anybody else from coming in. So, I feel horrible what he went through, but we're at a crossroads here, like I said, and if we do this, then we can't say no to the other people that come in, that are going to be next to it. And that's going to be a problem.
Okay, just a little comment here. First of all, there's 5 trucking companies within the 3 miles, between 16 Mile and Clinton River to 15 Mile maybe. There's really 5 different companies, and most of those industries that is around, they have trucks, and either semi trucks or straight trucks, or small manufacturers, and some of them are big manufacturers, and so I don't see anything new that's coming to the street, honestly. And
Well, the
I would
rezoning is,
like-
the rezoning is new. You're
Okay.
changing the zoning.
And if you wanted to if you're worrying about other lots that it's gonna be, that people gonna ask for rezoning, I don't think there are many of them anyway. How many of them are they on that street anyway?
Correct.
It's
correct.
all full. Who's gonna ask for rezoning, because there's existing
Oh,
buildings.
I've already heard from industrial people that own vacant
That's the only
property.
one.
They're thrilled if you get that. Because
That's
they're going to
right.
sell their property as I do also. So they'd
It's
be
the
thrilled.
only one, that's right. I've heard that, that's right. But
On that same side of Groesbeck, it's I-2 south of 16 Mile Road, pretty much all the way down.
Yes.
But this area happens to be I-1, and there's a lot of residential right there.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
Yeah.
there was, he asked, I would like to answer that question he asked me earlier about if I'm having problems in Warren or not.
No, I was asking you, if you've developed in Warren, didn't you have to go through a whole procedure of approvals? So you've gone
course.
through this before. This is not your first time.
Okay, yeah, this is not
You
my-
did rely on the letter more than legally should have, but you've gone through planning, zoning, and inspections and requirements in Warren,
Sure.
you know,
I
so
did.
you know the
Was all-
procedure. But obviously, your lawyer never told you to not rely on the letter.
Township.com uploads.
Correct.
Didn't know that I shouldn't be relying on that letter that says,
I mean, you went through a planning commission recommendation in Warren when you built and opened that facility.
it was
Correct.
already, it was existing, but it wasn't a trucking business. It was trees and they used to cut trees, a company who cut trees there. So, yes, I went there and I told them that's what I'm trying to do, and they gave me the same letter. And then I went and bought the property based on that letter, and it was all good. After I got the letter, they said, okay, you need to fix the fence, here's storage problems, whatever, a lot of things, you know, and I did them all, and it's all good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Aragona, then I'll ask for a roll call.
Okay. Yeah, a few things. First of all, I wanted to echo what Mr. Pearl was saying. I think we're opening ourselves up to more I-2 in that Groesbeck area, for one. Two, I did want to echo a few of my other board members' comments. Sam, we do want you here.
Thank
If
you.
we can help you in any way, we'd love to. I personally believe this is the wrong spot. I can't speak for the rest of the board members, but I don't think this is the right thing to do to have I-2 here. I'm sorry. If we can help you in any way, I do want to do it. The third and final one is through the chair to Mr. Johnson. We were at the same meeting. I don't believe we were flippant about our previous planning commissioner. I don't know if you're referring to my comments or other ones, but we did have a great amount of respect for the gentleman. We just happen to disagree with his letter and how it was presented. So I do want to clear that up for everybody.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mrs. Nelson.
Mr. Cannon, before we do that, can we see if any members from the public have any comment?
Any community members wish to speak?
I actually live in Eagleside Farms, and
We need you to come up to the microphone.
I actually do live in Eagleside Farms on the other side of Groesbeck.
Your name? Can you?
Oh,
I'm sorry,
Heather
can
Condon, 21963 Ulrich, Clinton Township, Michigan, 48756. Thank you. In Pahoa, the trucking company that is actually in that area, they do seem respectful. I don't find them out in the middle of the night or at some, ridiculous hour. They're not noisy. But I do have concern for the roads with all of these heavy trucks that, Groesbeck is beautiful right there right now. And I've lived there probably 20 years now, and it's fabulous. I would hate to see more trucking companies come in and rip up the roads that much more. So, and I have talked to some neighbors who don't know anything about this, but complain about Pahoa and some of the trucks that will cut through our neighborhoods. Not necessarily the Pahoa trucks, but some of the other smaller commercial trucks in the area. So there is concern for more, commercial businesses in our neighborhoods, because there is quite a few houses right on Groesbeck, right in that specific area. South of 16, it is very industrial, and I think if we could find another place, it sounds like a beautiful building. Congratulations to you. I think that's amazing what you've done. But yeah, as far as zoning, I mean, there's there's 2 elementary schools right across the street. There's the middle school on the other side. I don't think we really need a trucking company right there, not another one. So, okay, that's my piece.
Thank you. Further comments from the community? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
This is to reject.
Correct.
Yes, to reject. Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
No.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
No.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes. But I have a point of order.
Yes.
On this, I just want to clarify, did you say that you work for Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Johnson is the client of, Sam is his client?
I do not work with Sam. I work for Mr. Johnson, but I have not worked with Sam.
I'm just concerned about a conflict. Is there a conflict here for
I
that?
don't
or-
believe so, because I have not worked directly with Sam, with the gentleman. I work for John, yes.
Who benefits from, and then, okay, I didn't think of it until after the roll call, and I just wondered if there was a,
Well, I can abstain. You can go
Well,
ahead and
it's
do
too
the
late
roll
now,
call.
but-
Well, no, I mean, it's just,
No, it's already done.
I mean, it's, don't make me comment on
okay,
this.
well,
No, because I could comment.
okay.
Okay. Introduction for applicants of the Library Commission.
Dear board members, there is one term up for appointment on the Clinton Macomb Public Library Board. This appointment is a 4-year term to expire April 30th, 2023. As you know, this is a governing library board consisting of a total of 8 trustees who reside in both Clinton and Macomb Townships. These appointments are for representation from Clinton Township. Ms. Barbara Brown has submitted her application for reappointment, as well as Ms. Rose Ventimiglia, who has submitted her application for appointment. These applications have been attached for your review. Per the policy guidelines, an invitation has been extended to all applicants to attend the June 17th, 2019 board meeting, in which they will be provided an opportunity to introduce themselves to the Board of Trustees, whereby each being given a 3-minute time limit in which to do so. Sincerely, Stephanie Middlestad, Administrative Assistant.
Neither of them are here, so a motion to receive and file is in order.
So moved?
Second?
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gilliam.
Mr.
I'm sorry,
first.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 7 is introduction of applicants for the Historical Commission.
One moment, please. Dear board members, there are 3 terms up for appointment on the Historical Commission. Please note that these appointments fall under the jurisdiction of the Township Supervisor and is subject to approval by the Township Board. Mr. Maxwell Heiderer, Mr. James Hungerford, and Ms. Karen Stevens have submitted their applications for reappointment, which are attached for your review. No other applications were received. These appointments are for a 3-year term to expire April 13th, 2022. Per the policy guidelines, an invitation has been extended to all applicants to attend the June 17th, 2019 board meeting. They will each be provided an opportunity to introduce themselves to the Board of Trustees, whereby each being given a 3-minute time limit in which to do so. Sincerely, Stephanie Middlestead, Administrative Assistant.
Thank you. And we don't have any members here this evening, so a motion to receive and file is in order.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 8 has been discussed. Item 9, request to schedule a public hearing.
Okay. Dear members of the board, the Department of Assessing respectfully requests you to schedule a public hearing for the renewal of the Special Assessment Police and Fire millage. Please schedule the public hearing for the July 1st, 2019 regular board meeting. The Special Assessment millage is levied on real property only and will generate the following approximate revenue based upon a real property taxable value of $2,836,160,646. Police is 5 mills at $14,180,803. Fire is at 4 mills, $11,344,642, for a total of $25,525,445. Did I say million or billion before that? That was a
million.
total of 2 billion, 2 billion, I apologize. In addition, the industrial facility real property has a taxable value of $7,183,596 and will generate the following approximate revenue. Police, 2.5 mills at $17,958. Fire at 2 mills, $14,367 for a total of $32,325. Grand totals for police are $14,198,761. Fire is $11,359,009, and for a total of $25,557,770. The above approximate revenue amounts are subject to Board of Review, Michigan Tax Tribunal, Michigan Department of Treasury, and State Tax Commission adjustments. Respectfully submitted, James L. Rudd, Assessor.
So the motion should be to schedule the public hearing on July 1st.
Yes.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 10 is committee openings to be reposted.
Dear board members, there are 2 open terms on the Cultural Diversity Committee as well as 1 open term on the Historical Commission that have not received applications. At this time, it would be appropriate to repost the open term positions in accordance to our committee guidelines. The open terms will be advertised for an additional 60 days. Sincerely, Stephanie Middlestat, Administrative Aide.
Thank you. Now, I understand from Mrs. Middlestat that there are many people, not many, there are a number of people who are either giving her a letter of resignation or are going to because they don't wish to fill out the forms that the township is now requiring them to fill out. So I suggest that the township board members talk among yourselves and figure out how you want to resolve that, because we are losing some very valuable volunteers in the community.
Mr. Cannon? Just a point of question on when you say that they're not applying because, is it because of the financial disclosure
Yes.
document or
Yes.
the ethics document?
I don't know
Because
which
there's
of the-
2 portions.
I don't know which of the 2.
So I guess it's the, the financial disclosure part of it, I definitely can understand. I don't see why we would need to have people that are, pretty much volunteering their time, give a financial disclosure. I don't see the benefit in that in any way. I don't have an issue with them signing the ethics, in other words, doing, basically what our ethics policies, recommends that they do, keeping things honest and so on. That I don't have a problem with. And I wouldn't think that any of the people that are applying would have an issue with that, because a lot of these, everyone that I know of has been wonderful to work with. They give of their time and their talents very freely. So I think we should be contacting them and finding out why they are.
I believe it's the
refusing.
financial, but I can't say that for certain.
Okay.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
I can just say, after talking with Stephanie, another form that many of them, or not many, a few of them on the Historical Commission who also sit on the Arboretum refused to fill out is a new application. Obviously, some of these applications have been on file for over 10, 15 years, and one of the things this board did in my first year in office was to ask that a new application be applied. So we have updated contact information, and us board members can get to know those individuals based on an updated document rather than a 10-year-old document. Some of these members are refusing to even fill that out. And I think that is something that we should look at, and having conversations with our volunteers and our committee members to let them know our expectations. And we're not, in my opinion, we're not asking too much, and we can have the conversation about financial disclosure. I think you make some good points. But I do think that when you sign up to be on a committee, there's also a level of work that needs to be done to communicate to the board members and to the public what criteria you bring to the table. And so I just hope that we can get to a point where new applications are being filled out every time there's a posting, so we have that updated resume and information, as well as a signed ethics document or something of that nature.
Thank you. Mr. Gilliam?
Let's also be clear here on what we're actually asking for in terms of financial disclosure. And it's not a question of, what is your income? What do you personally make? What are you pulling down each year? It's simply a matter of where do you work? Where do you derive your income? And as a result of that, which is the kind of stuff that you put on a resume, which is the kind of stuff that you generally put on your application. And so it's also, I think, where you own property. So I think, yes, we appreciate the work of our volunteers, but we also don't want people joining a committee for the purpose of then suggesting or making decisions based upon the hiring of vendors or the, locations for events based upon how it's going to affect them personally, but how it's going to affect the community at large. And that, I think, is not something, I don't think what we're asking for is overburdensome, and I don't think it's the type of information that you wouldn't be disclosing anyways on an application. So I just think, there might be a little bit of an overreaction on this if you really sit down and talk to people and said, hey, let's take a closer look at this.
I mean, everybody's going to have a different opinion, but I'm told there are some people who are very, very disturbed and insulted by it. So we'll talk about it like we talked about. Mr. Pearl?
Look, I understand the people have been on commissions for a long time, but, I mean, what they're asking to sign gets put in a file. It's not required to be on a website like the elected officials. So it's not even being disclosed. It's not readily available to other public. So I think there is an education that maybe they just have to meet with them and one-on-one and ask them to consider it, because we want their valued service as a volunteer. We don't want them to stop because of a change of policy.
I agree.
So I think we can work this out.
Okay, so we're good to
We need a motion to repost.
to repost.
I'll make a motion to repost.
Support.
A roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 11 is approval of appointment to appraisal clerk 2 position.
Dear members of the board, the assessing department is recommending the appointment of Mr. Michael Loretti to the position of appraisal clerk 2. Mr. Loretti successfully completed all civil service testing and was selected by the department after candidate interviews. As a condition of employment, he is required to successfully complete a background investigation and a pre-employment medical examination, including drug test. This is a budgeted position. Mr. Loretti's starting salary will be $35,814, as specified in the UAW Unit 52 Collective Bargaining Agreement. Upon Township Board approval, his appointment date will be June 27, 2019. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. Sincerely, William Smith, Human Resources Director.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 12 is a request from the fire chief to attend 2019 Redmond Conference.
Dear members of the board, I'm writing to request approval to attend the 2019 Redmond Symposium in Nashville, Tennessee from August 18th to the 22nd. This conference will allow me to maintain certification as one of the 3 department peer fitness trainers. In addition, breakout sessions will also focus on behavioral health, cancer research, fitness and suicide prevention, as well as many other topics. The cost of attendance has been budgeted for during the 2019-20 fiscal year. Thank you for your consideration with this matter. Should you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me at any time. Sincerely, Tim Duncan, Clinton Township Fire Chief.
So moved.
This is, Mr. Cannon, if I may,
Yes.
before, the total estimated cost is $1,485.
Thank you.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 13, request approval to attend viewing equipment training at the Toronto Police College.
To your honorable board, 2 years ago, Clinton Township adopted a mandatory camera surveillance ordinance for certain types of businesses in Clinton Township. The video from these businesses, along with other evidence obtained, is crucial in many criminal investigations. The problem is the video is not always compatible with Clinton Township Police viewing equipment. For the April 1st, 2019 budget, Clinton Township Police purchased a program called Input Ace, which formats the video for police use. The program requires training, and the only East Coast training this year is at the Toronto Police College in Toronto, Canada. I'm requesting to send Detective Jay Anderson to this class, which costs $795 plus lodging and meals. Chief Posovitz concurs with my request, and the cost will be taken out of the training budget. The training will be held June 26th to the 27th of 2019. Respectfully submitted, Captain Richard Marlin.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 14, request to purchase 1 crew cab and 2 Ford Ranger pickup trucks.
Dear members of the board, I'm requesting permission to purchase 1 F-350 crew cab and 2 Ford Ranger pickup trucks. The prices for the F-350 crew cab is $30,373. The price for each Ford Ranger is $28,342. These trucks will be purchased from Signature Ford through the Macomb County bid number 21-18. These trucks are all budgeted in our 2019-20 capital outlay budget. Sincerely, Mary Bednar, Director of Public Services.
These are in the budget.
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 15 is request approval to increase threshold of conference travel and expense reimbursement policy.
Dear Township Board members, on Tuesday, June 4th, 2019, the Budget Ways and Means Committee met and discussed increasing the travel and expense reimbursement policy. The present policy requires board approval to attend conferences when the cost for the conference exceeds $1,000. Since many of the conferences now exceed the $1,000 limit, the board is tasked with having to approve almost every conference. In almost every case, these conferences are already budgeted. This was not the intent of the policy. In fact, the reason for such a policy is so departments can operate efficiently and best determine what the needs are of their staff so they can be equipped to provide the best service to Clinton Township residents. Since the Board of Trustees meets only every 2 to 3 weeks, this results in employees delaying or missing out entirely on a conference due to the requirement of board approval. This requirement for board approval can prohibit an employee from obtaining necessary training and delay certifications. Due to increased costs necessary for continuing education and training and the timelines to respond in order to participate in the conferences, it is the committee's recommendation that the Board of Trustees approves the committee's request to increase the limit of board approval to attend conferences from $1,000 to $1,500. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer, Chairperson for the Budget Ways and Means Committee.
Is there any discussion by the trustees?
Move to approve.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mrs. West.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
No.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 16, adoption of resolution establishing a policy for abandonment of special assessment projects for public improvements.
Mr. Cannon, if our Director of Department of Public Services would speak to this, or our attorney.
This is a change in our policy with special assessment districts, or we're asking for a change in the policy for our special assessment districts. In the past, our township board would allow people to remove their signatures on the petition up and through the second public hearing. Unfortunately, at the second public hearing, that's actually when you're setting the roll, and all the engineering has been done, all of, I'm going to call it the pre-soft costs have been implemented. In fact, we've already gone out for bid, and we actually have the cost of the project. So removing a signature at that point, or dropping below, and could possibly drop below the 50%, could cause the project to stop. And basically, at that point, all of those soft costs, now there's no project to it, and now we're absorbing those costs and so forth. So what this resolution does and change in policy does is change it to at the end of the first public hearing. Technically, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but
Yeah, let me jump in real fast here because you've done a great job. Right now, the way the law works is the signatures are all measured in terms of adequacy, meaning you hit that 50% threshold based on the time the signatures are actually turned in. The measurement takes place at the first public hearing, which we refer to as Resolution 3. As Mary pointed out, up until Resolution 5, the second public hearing, we've allowed withdrawal. So now what we're doing is we're saying you have to withdraw up to and including Resolution 3, the second public hearing. So we're moving the time up because of the concern about expenditures being lost if we use a later date and we abandon. however, it's continuing to allow the withdrawal of the signatures up to Resolution 3. Under the statute, and some communities, many or most communities do this, they hold fast to the count at the time the signatures are turned in. We're still giving a concession to the public that goes beyond what we're required to in the event that the count does drop below 50%, but we're not extending it all the way out to the end of the process, leaning the property. We're extending it out to the point in time where we actually declare the district as a tentative district, and then move next to lean the project.
Any questions? Mr. Pearl?
I don't have a question specifically on this, but I would like the board's opinion. There's something that I talked to Mr. Dolan about. I got a call on one of the SADs where it looks like everything was approved for the road, and a homeowner that was not part of the district, but it's on the corner, that may go into the other street that wasn't part of the SAD. Now, it looks like it's going to put a garage and a driveway out to the new road. Similar to sewer assessments where people tie in later on, there's a procedure. Well, here, if somebody builds a home on a street, and we're just starting to do more and more SADs. We don't have any procedure. If that homeowner ties into that street, he gets it free, you know? Or if he decides to put a garage in and a driveway, there's no procedure. And I talked to Mr. Dolan about the possibility of changing our procedures to allow that to be assessed and the homeowners get back some of the money that they put in prorated share.
Does that directly relate to this change?
Not to this, but this, it's related to this before we close it out. And the SADs, I just want to.
Okay.
I know if the
I was
board
struggling to figure out how.
is
those-
interested in
okay.
asking Mr. Dolan to weigh in on that at a future agenda.
I'm fine with that, but this is the first I've ever heard of anything like that.
And I got a call, and they were concerned because they already closed on it and got assessed, and now that looks like the person may be putting the driveway out after the road gets in and doesn't get assessed.
I think I did talk to Mr. Pearl about that, and obviously, as a matter of fairness, I think we should consider doing something, and I can talk to Mary and to Scott about that as well. One of the thoughts I had is we would consider that then to be a debt service line, and a debt service road, so to speak, and you'd have to make a contribution at that point if you want to get approval for your driveway to the road. And then what we could do is we could take and prorate out those funds that we collect and set them off against or we could just basically add them to the paying off on the cost of the special assessment. So that would reduce the overall cost of the assessment.
It's
There's
just-
different ways.
just
to
a
get
fair way to
at
do
it,
it.
so to speak. But
If it-
those were some of the things I was thinking of.
I didn't anticipate it coming up, but I got the call, and it could come up more often since we're doing more SADs.
Yeah, it's a separate issue, and it should be addressed, but it's not specifically germane, but I agree we should address it. I think Scott and Marion and I can try to look at that.
Very good.
So I would just, if I could, Mr. Cannon, thank you. So, given the fact that we've had the law says you have to withdraw by this, certain time period. We've always allowed people, at any stage of the game to do that. I think we're moving in the right direction. I think we need to sort of set a date. Okay, here's the cutoff, here's when we can do this. But I think we also have a responsibility to make sure, given the fact that we have a history here, we have to make it clear to people, this is the date where you can withdraw. So I just want to make sure that that's part of the policy change environment that we're creating here. And so whether it's expressed in the policy or whether it's part of the, the standard operating procedures or, something to that effect, I'm not sure exactly, and I guess I'm looking for your advice on how to do that, but I think that's important. So I'll ask you to comment on that, I guess.
My thought on it would be to just give a written notification that the board's adopted this policy to the petitioners at the time that they received the petition and request that that be included as part of the, we can actually potentially also put it on the petition language as a bulletin, so that when you're signing the petition, it's on the document that you're signing. So notice that that's the last possible date.
I would caution, most people don't know the last possible date or what the policy has been unless they've done SADs before. And I don't want people to get confused on the day of withdrawing signature versus the appeals. If they want to appeal it, they do have to show up at both public hearings and speak to it. So I think we got to be careful with that wording, and we'll have to think, Jack and I and Kim can sit down and figure out the right wording to do that, because I don't want people, there's two different things there that people could get confused very easily. So we'll work on it.
So you're suggesting that one is an appeal, the other is a withdraw date?
Right, somehow we'll have to figure that out and how to make sure it's clear.
Okay.
Mrs. Meltzer?
Just to that, I think that we may want to consider putting it on the SAD procedure, the standard operating procedures as, and then educate the petitioner at the time would be one way I think might be a good idea. But that said, as Mary Bednar points out, is we want to make sure there's no confusion in that. So there will be opportunities for us to make sure that it's clear to those that are signing it and who's participating in the SAD.
Okay. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Who did you, who made?
Mr. Aragona supported it.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
No.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 17, disposition of Clinton Township-owned properties.
On May 23, 2019, the Clinton Township Property Disposition Committee reviewed and offered to purchase Clinton Township-owned property as follows. Parcel number 16-11-12-176-003 and -005. Recommendation to accept the bid of $401 submitted by Patrick and Kelly McCluskey of 23846 Joy Road, Clinton Township, Michigan 48036, contingent upon the petitioner attaching the parcels to their adjacent parcel and obtaining any necessary permits. We submit this recommendation for your consideration. Sincerely, Bruce Thompson, Department of Planning and Community Development.
I concur this is a very good sale. It will put the property back on the tax roll and assure that it will continue to be properly maintained.
So if I could, Mr. Cannon, I want to take this opportunity as the chair of the Property Disposition Committee. We found out that there were a whole ton of properties that people had come in, stressed an interest in purchasing, and those recommendations hadn't been acted on. So we became very aggressive, particularly Ms. Meltzer, myself, and then a coalition of the staff from the public services, from assessing, from who was left at the time in planning, and to say, look, we've got these properties, we want to get them out there. The process is basically this. As we obtain more properties from the county, we offer them up for public auction. It's a closed bid auction. If no one bids on those properties, what we do is we will entertain offers. So if there's property that you have that's adjacent to your property, we give priority to adjacent property owners. We believe that that's in the community's best interest to make sure that we offer them at a reasonable, fair rate to people. And rather than the township having to pay to maintain them, rather than them not being on the tax rolls, it's in our best interest to make sure that adjacent property owners buy this, combine this with their lot, they then pay the taxes on it, they receive the personal exemption on it, and it quite frankly makes their a taxable value that much higher because they have bigger lots and more, I think, a more...
It's more appealing.
It's more appealing, more amenities attached to their property, and so as a result, I think it's in our best interest to do this and entertain offers like this, and I think it's something that's good to see. We have far too many properties. We need to get them out there, and I commend the planning director for being aggressive at helping us get these things rolling.
Here,
as well.
here. Agreed.
Okay, we're ready for a motion? Or I missed a roll call?
Do we have a motion? Because I don't have it.
No, we
No,
did have a-
we don't
I
have a
can make a
motion.
motion.
Okay, Mr. Keys is making the motion. Is there
Support.
supported by Mrs. West. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 18 is proposed text amendment to the codified ordinance of Clinton Township, Planning and Zoning Code addition to Chapter 1298.12.
This commission has made review and held public hearing on the proposal to amend the text of the codified ordinances of Clinton Township, Part 12, Planning and Zoning Code, formerly known as Clinton Township Zoning Ordinance Number 260, to add Chapter 1298.12, Planned Unit Development, PUD District. We hereby make recommendation for approval of the amendment as proposed, and this action was approved by unanimous vote. A copy of the notice of the May 9th, 2019 public hearing containing the original proposed amendment is attached for your information and file. We submit this proposal for consideration and would appreciate advisement of your determination. Sincerely, Catherine Cherry, Secretary for the Clinton Township Planning Commission.
Are there any comments or questions of board members? I believe this is a very nice tool that has been brought to us by our planning director to help us resolve some potentially difficult properties.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Another one you've all been waiting for.
Yeah.
Introduction of Township Ordinance 457, the chicken ordinance.
Dear Ms. Melter, attached is a final version of Ordinance 610.05, permitting chickens to be kept subject to a permit and regulating the chicken coop location, construction method, size, number of chickens, and type of chickens, as well as other matters relating to chickens. This ordinance is presented after discussion by the Budget Ways and Means Committee and following review by Mr. Miller of the Building Department. If acceptable, a motion to introduce and publish with the intent to adopt at the next regular meeting is in order. Should you have any questions or need anything further, please advise. We remain very truly yours, York Dolan and Tomlinson, John Dolan, attorney.
Are there any questions of anyone? Mr. Keys?
No, not a question. I just want to thank both Mr. Miller and the Budget Ways and Means Committee. When I first got elected, I had about 4 or 5 residents who had contacted me in hopes of being able to keep their chickens that they had. And Mr. Miller worked with each resident through the process. Obviously, that's not allowed here, and those residents not happy, but I thank you for the work that you did with them to get them up to compliance, and I think they'll be excited about this. But I remember bringing this to you and the then planning director, and the eyes started to roll, and it was, oh, this could be a big hassle. And so I just appreciate the work that you and the Budget Ways and Means Committee did to get an introductory ordinance together.
Mr. Cannon, if I can also add, thank you. As Chair of Budget Ways and Means, this was kind of a fun ordinance to be able to be a part of, because just like you, Mr. Keys, I've heard a lot from residents in terms of wanting that quality of life, the eggs and the nutrition that comes with that, and the fact that there's no roosters allowed, and that there will be permission from abutting properties as to whether or not they, neighbors of, would want that in the neighborhood. We think those criteria will help to mitigate any complaints that could come up as a result of that. But we think it's a good proposal, and we think it's going to, who knows, we might see a lot more, maybe we'll see roadside, we can't have roadside
chickens
stands
crossing the
selling
road.
eggs. Yeah, there'll be more
What came
chicken.
first, the
more
egg
chicken
ordinance, the
jokes.
chicken ordinance? We've been having a fun time with this, and
Yeah, but thank you very much for the support.
I'll make the motion.
I'll support.
I'll second.
Let me say one good thing.
Mr. Aragona?
Yeah, thanks to the Budget Ways and Means Committee that took this up. We're talking about chickens. I did have a resident who is requesting goats. So if you guys want to take that up in the future, let me know and I can pass along the message.
yeah.
Thank you.
There's pigs, too, potbelly
Pigs, I
pigs.
prefer.
That one I haven't got yet.
Under
Got that
advisement.
one.
Motion by Mr. Keys, supported by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Item 20 is to amend the Clinton Township investment policy.
Dear board members, by statute, township treasurers are responsible for safeguarding the funds and guiding the investment strategy in compliance with Public Act 20 of 1943 as amended and the township's board's investment policy. As such, I'm recommending that the board approve changes to the township's investment policy. These recommended changes are in 3 main areas. 1, for certain investments, I'm proposing that we widen the duration of the allowable investment term from a limit of 3 years to 5 years. This will allow the township to lock in rates and generate yields in periods of economic stagnation, market downturns, and declining interest rates. Number 2, addition of ethics language directly in the investment policy. Number 3, allow for the township investment in newer vehicles that were created as a result of the 2010 changes in the overriding governing statute, Public Act 20 of 1943. Attached, you will find a copy of the policy with the language changes highlighted. Please let me know if you have any questions. Respectfully, Paul Gilliam, Treasurer.
So, if I may, Supervisor left the room, so I'll just take it upon myself to.
I think he thought you might give a little.
Yeah, he was expecting me to talk on this. And so I think, Ms. Meltzer, you'll appreciate that. I abbreviated my letter significantly, but I did send out the changes ahead of time. And, basically, so I guess I would say this. I've been fortunate because my term as treasurer has coincided with the rising rate environment. Prior to me, the township was able to occur about $200,000 in interest income. My first full fiscal year on the job, it was $680,000, and then the following year it was $1.35 million. However, I don't think interest rates were the only thing at play here. The other thing at play was actively managing these dollars to make sure that we produce yield. That's my fiduciary responsibility. So, 1, the rates aren't always going to be on the rise, but 2, you are always going to have a treasurer, as long as I'm in the job, that's actively trying to meet the fiduciary responsibility of producing yield and trying to increase returns for the township. So with that, one of the things that I passed out just at the meeting here, because one of my investment advisors provided this, I'm like, oh, this is something that I think the board really needs to see. If you look what the 2-year treasury, what the 3-year treasury, 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, what they were producing at the beginning of the year and what they're currently producing as of, I think this was like last week, rates are dropping significantly. And so by expanding this duration, which is the real impetus of making these changes, it gives us the ability to lock in rates. So when we buy investments now at this rate, we're able to lock those rates in, produce yield even when rates go down to 0. We're close to seeing an inversion in the yield curve, and so it's something that I think is prudent. It makes the most amount of sense. There is increasing risk. However, both our investment policy and Public Act 20 work together to make sure that we mitigate that risk and that we only invest in investment-grade vehicles that are the safest and rated the highest. And so it's my job to propose these changes, and so I'm bringing them to you. The other 2 changes, just some broad ethics language. Our ethics policy doesn't apply to everybody, but I want everybody in the investment policy process to be able and to have language that's on the books that says you have a duty and responsibility to report to the treasurer if there's any type of conflict of interest in your personal situation on this. And then 3, there were some changes made in 2010 that aren't reflected in our investment policy that I wanted to make sure that we accounted for. That doesn't mean we're necessarily going to invest in them, but we then have the option if we can determine it's safe. And a couple of those are actually fully insured. The FDIC insurance rate is at $250,000. Some of these newer vehicles are fully insured up to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. So way past the FDIC insurance rate. And they're producing some pretty good yield. So,
Mr. Pearl, then Mrs. Meltzer.
Mr. Gilliam, yeah, I read your report and your changes, and I actually think you're doing a good job there, Treasurer.
Oh, appreciate that.
And really, I've heard a lot of good things. I did get through the new software. It took a couple extra steps, but in paying bills online.
Oh, yes.
But it wasn't hard.
Yeah, that's a whole nother matter, and that's been a struggle, but,
I'm sure
but I do appreciate this. And Mr. Pearl, I will point out, though, that you were one of the ones, with your involvement in the school board, you were questioning things from the get-go as we sort of expanded into different vehicles. And so I appreciate those questions, and I always appreciate any board members coming to me. It's my duty to report on a quarterly basis, but if you have questions in the meantime, I encourage you to come to my office, and we'll go through everything that we do and how we vet the investment vehicles that we're selecting.
Can I say, however, I'd like to request a small change.
Okay.
I'd like you to handle the ethics thing within the procedure. Under 5.1, you have the authority to do that with your people. It says the treasurer shall establish a separate document detailing investment procedures that are consistent with the policy, and that regarding delegation of authority to those people that are responsible. So if you could do a separate document.
I'm curious as to why we wouldn't just put it in the investment policy.
Because we have an ethics thing that doesn't involve employees. And I think as treasurer, you have the right and duty to put it in as a requirement within your department, which is spelled out here. And I don't want to get involved and reopen the whole thing about ethics. We already passed the ethics thing, and I don't want to reopen it. But I think you can do it within the existing document. So I would.
So that's what I've done. I've done it within the existing document,
But it's
within
already
the
spelled
investment
out that you
policy.
can do a letter, a separate letter, it says.
Yeah.
Separate document, it says, detailing that. It's already.
I'm sorry,
given here.
it says, where does it say? I'm not sure what you're referring
5.1
to.
investment procedures, the treasurer shall establish.
Yeah.
Separate document detailing investment procedures.
And it says I can do a separate document, but I can tell you that communities that have been very active at this, when you go up to the Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association, it is recommended that you have this language in the investment policy. Part of the reason for that is because what you're doing, and one of our requirements within this policy is to say, anybody that we're sending this to, any CD that we're buying, any broker that the office is dealing with, any pool fund that is out there, it's a requirement that I send this policy to them and that they are made aware of what our investment policy is. And so then, this then applies to them as well. And so I think it's important to have it within this document. Because then it doesn't just apply to people
What employees are
internally.
you talking about?
My deputy, any other employee that would be.
Who would regulate, who would make
working on these.
decisions other than you or your deputy?
It's me and my deputy that are making decisions on behalf of the township for investments.
Then say your deputy, not all employees. I'm just saying, we took employees out of the whole ethics thing. So if
So,
you want
I
to
guess I
say
would-
deputy, then say deputy. There's nobody else that's going to make decisions.
I would defer to Mr. Dolan and say, what would supersede? Would those contracts supersede? Or,
When you say supersede, I'm not sure what you're
I'm
referring.
saying, you reviewed the language that you had here, and other than, are you sharing the concerns that this somehow applies to people other than myself and my deputy, the way it's currently written?
Right now, as drafted, it's not specific as to who it applies to. It applies to people who, you do it by their, what you're saying, to my knowledge, Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're saying if you're part of the process of these investments being made, which would mean someone who's presumably an employee, who is part of the process of the investment being made, that you must disclose what you call a material financial interest in any of the banks that the money or other investment, what I'll call companies in which the investment is being made.
So it actually says, township financial officers and employees involved in the investment process, those are basically two people internally. myself and my deputy.
Well, well, let's spell that out.
So,
Then I'm okay. That's all. I'm just trying to take out the ambiguity.
the ambiguity,
Yeah.
One, too.
yeah.
Mr. Cannon, I have a question also.
Then I'm okay with it.
Mrs. Meltzer?
Mr. Dolan, if I may, through the chair, on this too, I can't recall because I don't have the ethics policy in front of me, but wasn't there some type of language, when you use the word shall, so in this case, township financial officers and employees involved in the investment process shall refrain from personal business activity that, could we add, they knowingly could conflict with proper execution of the investment? Because I'm just wondering if it's possible they don't realize it. Can you put that language in there? Same on line 3 of page 7. It says employees and investment officials shall disclose to the treasurer any known material. I want to add the word known there. Financial interest, and shall, based on the knowledge, further disclose any large personal financial investment positions. I thought that we kind of provided for that in the ethics policy that we passed. Is that, would you recall that or no?
I don't recall that, but I would say this, to the extent you're imposing a duty to disclose, someone can obviously only disclose what they know. If they don't know something, they're not really capable of disclosing it. I think what we're after is imposing, and I'd rather let Paul speak to it, because of course he's the author of it, but I think what he's talking about is trying to come forward if you have some type of significant position in a bank, or, for example, use a bank as an example, if you've got, big stock holdings or big deposits in a particular bank, the money's going in there, that should be known ahead of time so that to the extent that creates the appearance of some impropriety or possible impropriety, that can be dealt with before the actual transaction occurs.
Mr. Chairman, I'm
so
just
I-
asking
Wait,
to
well, wait a
make
second,
one
I wasn't done,
change.
Mr. Cannon, Mr. Cannon, I wasn't done. So, and your point is taken that I could ask you, the reason I say that is because some people, make quite a few large investments, they might not realize that there's interaction between certain investors, and I'm just saying, that language kind of, shall means it's a defined thing, there's no, you have to do that, and if you don't do it, then there's no room for explanation as to why you did it if you didn't
Okay.
intentionally do it.
So-
That's kind of what I'm saying is, and that protects your deputies.
So
And you.
I appreciate bringing these issues forward. I do think that as public servants, we have a duty to make sure that if we're operating with the public dollars, we have a duty to know this. And then I think Mr. Dolan is correct that it's certainly implied that you can't disclose what you don't know. So I think that may cover that. And I guess to Mr. Pearl's point, I would say, if we say township financial officers and employees, if we remove employees and just leave it as township financial officers, the two sworn officers, financial officers of the township are the treasurer and the deputy treasurer.
So moved.
But am I
Support.
not on that, on some of those documents as well?
Yeah, but I don't think you're a
That's
financial
what I thought.
officer. I
I'm okay.
think you're record keeping, but I don't think, because you're not a fiduciary responsibility for these dollars.
Okay, I think Mr. Pearl's issue has been corrected. Mr. Keys?
I
So,
supported the motion, and my
Okay.
issue has been.
We're all set?
okay.
We're all set with,
So we're dropping, the only change we're making is section 16, page 6, ethics and conflict of interest, township financial officers, we're dropping and employees
Right, yeah.
from the amendment.
I already moved it.
we have
You
a
already-
motion and a support.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
No, it's Mr. Pearl and Mr. Key.
I made the motion.
Oh, I have, okay, oops, you know what? I was on a separate page. All right, Mr. Pearl made the motion?
Yes.
And Mr. Keys supported it?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 21, request approval to pay the MTA annual membership dues.
This is the amount of $6,898.94, which is our annual dues as stated.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Request a closed session in regard to a legal opinion in regard to Lipke Street water easement acquisition. We will not be coming out of closed session.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 23 is the Personnel Review Committee recommendation.
Dear board members, the Personnel Vacancy Review Committee met on June 13, 2019, to review the staffing requirements of one department. The committee is making the following recommendations. Facilities and Operations Division, Public Services Department. The committee unanimously recommends the following. Authorization for one additional part-time park maintenance position. This will bring the total number of authorized part-time park maintenance positions in the department to 4. A budget amendment of $30,000 for fiscal year 2020 is required for this action. Sincerely, William Smith, Human Resources Director.
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
Mr. Keys?
Just quickly through the chair to Mrs. Bednar, can you talk a little bit about this position, what they do throughout the township, and why we have the need for it currently?
So this is a position that we currently have 3 part-time park rangers, and this will be a 4th ranger. The 3 part-time rangers, they all work a total of 32 hours, and they do get benefits, and they drive around the township, and they open, close, maintain the parks, basically. If the restrooms need toilet paper or cleaning, whatever they need. This would be, the 4th one would be actually stationed at George, and their hours would be, basically, it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so it's a 4-day, and these are our critical hours at George when we have the most people. That's when proms come and when you got weddings, anyway, so this is our busiest time at George. So this person will be there in the afternoon shift, closing George, and being able to help and be there for the public when they need assistance.
Thank you.
Further questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And item 24 is the ACO with Golden Street project.
Dear board members, construction for the District E Phase 3 Golden Street Relief Sewer and Water Main Replacement Project is currently underway. The contractor is preparing for the relief sewer installation phase of this work. One component of these preliminary tasks is the temporary removal of the 7 existing streetlights and poles along the west side of the road. The contractor is coordinating those efforts with DTE Energy. We estimate the poles and foundations will be removed in the next 1 to 2 weeks. All of the foundations, poles, and wiring will be reinstalled once the relief sewer and paving work are substantially complete on Golden Street. DTE Energy has given Clinton Township the option to install new light poles in lieu of reinstalling the older aging street light poles. The cost for this upgrade is $4,793.32. The installation of these new poles will provide a consistent aesthetic improvement to the streetscape once the construction work is completed. Since this improvement is not directly associated with the other predefined incidental project activities, Clinton Township Board approval is needed for the additional expense. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Respectfully, Mary Bednar, Director of Public Services.
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
This is a very good move. We're going to pay the same price to put it up no matter what. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Through the chair, sorry. I just want to talk about this project a little bit because I was driving down Golden Street recently and immediately had to call Mrs. Bednar and Mr. Chabot because obviously the tree canopy being taken down for this project, it has a big impact. And so I'm just grateful that the township is moving forward with offering those residents tree replacements. And it's come to my attention that most of the residents have taken us up on that opportunity. And so I really hope that even those residents that maybe haven't yet will reconsider and take us up on that, because when you're driving down the street, you really don't appreciate a tree canopy until it's completely gone. on one side of the street. And so I appreciate that. Now, with these lights, the one question I do have is we're talking about 7 lights on the one side of the street. If we're replacing those and then we do have the upgraded ones, is that going to match the rest of the neighborhood or the neighboring streets there? Or will we have one street with some nicer lights and then the others, and, you know, it's not that they're going to be ugly, I just.
Well, Golden is one of the main streets going in. Currently on Golden, the 7 lights that are being taken down, there are 4 of one style and 3 of another style. So
Okay.
the idea is that it's going to be 7 of the same style. And I can't say they're going to match, meaning exactly the same, but it's that same, similar to what we have in our parking lot where it's the one continuous sweep. In the past, they had the older style, which comes up and then kind of branches off, so there's like 2 pieces of metal going to the head of the light. So it will be very similar, but it is all along that Golden stretch.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And I just think that when we have lights like this, it's such an added benefit to those neighborhoods. I grew up on a street near this area, and growing up in Clinton Township, I thought every street had street lights in the neighborhood, and it wasn't until later in life, when you could travel a little farther, you realize that, no, it's a huge benefit, and it's something that I think the residents in that area really appreciate.
Well, the residents of Special Assessment District, so they are involved with that and pay for those lights.
Thank you.
In addition to what you just mentioned, this is we hope, the final project for the consent order that we're under. And this is a big project. This is going to make the neighborhood look very nice. The residents were given the choice of leaving their tree up and having the tree trimmed back. I think they all made the right choice by having the tree removed, because the chance of that tree living wasn't real good. So I think things are hopefully working out real well over there, and hopefully this is our final ACO project.
Very nice.
Roll call?
Was that supported by Mr. Pearl? And made by
I made
Mr.
the
Keys?
motion.
Yeah, but supported by you? Mhm. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And approval of the minutes of the May 28th regular township board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. And the approval of the minutes of the June 6th special township board meeting?
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Approval of the bills?
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
There are no public comments this evening, so a motion to adjourn to go into closed session is in order.
So moved.
Consider the written legal.
Moved by Mr. Aragona, supported by Mr. Pearl.
Keys.
Mr. Aragona?
Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.